Emilie Wells started her career in investment banking in Paris. After an EMBA at INSEAD, she became UK Strategy Director of Saint-Gobain, the French building materials group. Welcome to your alumni experience, Emilie. How did you become a banker in Paris?
I didn't actually want to become a banker, it sort of happened. As I was studying, I met some American and English students who were spending a bit of time in Paris, and they all asked me, why aren't you doing consulting or banking? And I said, well, I don't know, I've never heard of it. I picked up the 10-day MBA, read about what you learn about in an MBA, taught myself the discounted cash flow model, and went and interviewed at a bank who were, I think, more interested in me in Paris because I was bilingual. So that's probably how I got my foot in the door, but then it worked out really nicely because it was a role that I really appreciated and I really particularly liked the numbers.
Lots of people want to do an MBA to learn finance skills. Surely you knew a lot of the course already.
Well, it was probably exactly the opposite. And in fact, I'd never wanted to do an MBA, but I was wondering how to transition and how to learn about the transition. And then I heard about executive MBAs. And that's a very, very different program because the executive MBA, you're surrounded by people with 10, 15 years experience in corporates typically, which is exactly what I was looking for. So I had dropped the idea of an MBA. I mean, I just didn't want to do an MBA because typically MBA students do their MBA and then come back at a level that was below where I was to begin with. So I wanted to learn from people who had the experience and to be surrounded by those people and sort of by osmosis or whatever it is, and through case studies and through, I wanted to learn from them. I thought it would be much more enriching, and it was.
After your EMBA, you found the strategy role on the INSEAD jobs board. Were they looking for someone with your background?
Probably, okay, I'd say probably the biggest selling point for me is solid background and Franco-British. That was a very strong point because I sound English when I speak English and I sound French when I speak French, which is powerful. But I don't think they had a specific profile in mind. My type of profile was one of probably several profiles they would have looked at. I think they would have looked at a consultant, they would have looked at another strategy role from another business, yeah. What
does a strategy director do all day?
I'm sure everyone tells you this. There's not a normal day. My responsibilities as strategy director, the typical responsibilities are the strategic plan, so in our case, the 3-year plan, which comes once a year. And we go through all the major strategic initiatives within each one of the businesses. Bearing in mind, I work for building distribution in the UK. That's £2.5 billion in sales. And we actually have over 15 brands. So the brands come and present to us. We roll it all up into a group level strategy plan, which we then present in Paris, and that gets rolled up and so on and so forth. So that part is very strategic. It's a lot about understanding all the brands, all the competitive advantages in each market and how we better leverage. I mean, it's exactly what you would expect of a strategy role. Another part of it, a big part of it, is mergers and acquisitions. That might be buying or selling. So we're always looking at our portfolio and seeing where we can acquire, where we can dispose of businesses.
You said one of the reasons you got hired is because of your kind of mix of French and British. Does that help on the job as well?
It's really interesting because I didn't even notice it at start, and then I started realising that the English team were a little bit, they were quite careful what they said around me because I can go and report back to France. So, and also they come to my office a lot to make sure that the message has got to me and therefore to Paris or whatever it is. But it's quite an interesting question because I've always worked in either the UK or in English or American companies, even when I was in France. So the whole French system is completely new to me. And I walk in there like a Brit speaking French, and they get very confused and very sort of taken aback because I think compared to a French person in my sort of position, I come across as extremely confident, because French people, who haven't been to the right engineering school, aren't supposed to behave like that. So it's really, really quite funny. I'm sort of gradually tuning into how the French behave and what sort of impact my way of behaving has, and kind of adjusting a little bit. But it's a very good question. It's been quite funny and quite interesting.
So you've made this change that lots of INSEAD alumni might quite like to follow. How did you do that? What are your tips?
Yes, I had lots of conversations, and I asked the same sort of questions that you're asking me. How do you transition from strategy, a consulting role into a corporate, or from finance to a corporate? And actually the answers I got, because typically strategy director is really, in a sense, it's a very smooth transition from banking, because the only thing that's different, I do mostly M&A, and the only thing that's different is I do some strategy as well. But I used to do some strategy in M&A in any case. So it's more the operational aspect of my role, which is a little bit unusual, I think, for a strategy director. And it's one of the things I really liked about this role, and that drew me into Saint-Gobain. It's a bit unusual, and I don't think most people would need to prepare for that. That would typically be the next step. You come into the business through a strategy role, and then you go into general management or finance or whatever it is.